Good morning. And Benita, Harold, thank you for having us. I think just before I speak about myself, I really want to take my hat off to all of you here today for this forum. I think it's such an important role that civil society has to play in the future of our country, especially in the next few years with quite a few things happening in our country where things can go really, really right and to the benefit of all things might go wrong. So for us as civil society, I take my hat off and whatever the forum and whatever the grouping, I respect the purpose of this. Benita said, I'm the CEO of Gondwana Collection. My background is law, and I spent a decade in banking. And I think the most important part of my CV is the fact that I'm a passionate Namibian, heart and soul, believe in the future of our country, even though there's a lot of hard work for all of us, and love tourism, love the country, love Gondwana in terms of what we stand for, most importantly. So I think that's the most important part of that.
Ja, thanks, Reis. Schönen guten Morgen allesamt. Gita Petzold, gebürtige Namibierin und 12 Jahre in der Convent. Also ich bin der englischen Sprache fast mächtiger als der deutschen Sprache und bin eigentlich ganz dankbar, dass Reis neben mir sitzt, dass wir das teils in Englisch machen können, weil Lingua Franca ist in Englisch oder ja, die Geschäftssprache in Englisch ist mir doch ein bisschen geläufiger. So yes, Gita Petzold, have been with the Hospitality Association of Namibia for 25 years. My background is actually political science. I actually wanted to become a diplomat and travel the world. So travel has always been my passion. But, sometimes many roads lead to the same destination. So I am in travel now and I love my job. Hospitality Association basically represents the tourism accommodation side, and tourism being a key economic factor in Namibia. This is where we are all trying to really promote where Namibia is going in terms of our economic strength. Yesterday or the day before, we had our Han AGM. Han has been 35 years old, and I've been sort of going through archives like we Germans like to do. And there are such interesting documents that come out. In 1991, the then Minister Bessinger, Nico Bessinger, the first tourism minister, he actually prioritized tourism as an economic sector. That was 1991, so over 30 years ago. In 1995, Han commissioned a document. They called it Tourism, a Case for Incentives, urging government to look at tourism and to incentivize tourism to grow and prosper, because we knew then already that tourism had what it took to not only boost income generation, but also be a very strong factor when it comes to job creation, not only for a certain elite, but for the ground level people as well. And that's been our focus then. And Norbert will tell you about the discussions that we had at our AGM will be our focus going into the future. We need our Namibians, especially the youth, to see a career in tourism, because there are ample opportunities, and not only the youngsters coming up now, but those people that have left us, the brain drain that Namibia has suffered, we need them to come back. And that's what we are going to focus on for the next couple of days and years.
Danke, Gita. Guten Morgen, Norbert Wurm, von der Olta Wandis-Gruppe, Managing Director, Geschäftsführer von Ohne Leisure, der Hotelgruppe. Gebürtiger Namibia aus Otjorongo. Bin jetzt 13 Jahre bei der Olta Wandis-Gruppe, bei der Brauerei angefangen, dann Pick and Pay, wie gesagt. Und dann hatte ich jetzt 3 Jahre fast im Tourismus. Ich hatte 6 gute Monate und dann sind die Reifen abgefallen. Und die letzten 2 Jahre waren natürlich eine riesen Herausforderung für uns. So, genug zu mir. Ich finde auch ein super Forum, eine super Angelegenheit, wie Reis gesagt hat. Ist für mich persönlich auch in persönlicher Sache eine Leidenschaft, dass man das deutsche Kulturgut erhält und natürlich auch diese Stimme hat, wie Harald gesagt hat. Danke für die Einladung, und ich finde das eine sehr gute Initiative, und ich hoffe, es wächst und wächst. So maybe so in English. Then from our side, like I said, the last 2 years, over 2 years, has been terrible for the tourism industry, and overnight everything collapsed. I will never forget the day. My phone, the phones sometimes do these video things because I took a few pictures, and then on the day the first lockdown was announced and we had to close down, I was at the Strand Hotel, and we had to close the Strand Hotel, and it was terrifying because you see the fear in people's faces. Am I going to have a job? What's happening? You just see tourists leaving with their bags packed. The mall empty. There's nothing, no one on the streets, and we physically had to close the hotel in such a big building. And that's what struck me. It was, and I still have that video. It's like a cathedral. It's empty. It's cold. There's no life. So that was for me. I still use it in training and to show our people that we don't forget where we have come from and what we have gone through. So that was for me, a symbol almost of what Corona did to our industry, because all of a sudden it was dead. This big, beautiful building, huge investment, beautiful mall. There was not a person. And literally me and the security, locked the door. And so it was a symbol, to show what that meant for the entire industry. And then we had, a very tough time after that. Obviously, there weren't any tourists, lockdowns. Everyone knows those stories. I don't have to share too much. But I think it was tough. I think for Gondwana and us, or maybe I can speak for myself or for ONL, the objective was always to protect livelihoods and really look to the future, because we always said it is terrible, it is a catastrophe, but it will end. And it's like a war. It will end at some stage, and there must be something after that. So we took a deliberate stand to say we will not retrench, we will not close down, we want, as long as we can, survive, because there will be something after this. And for those, obviously, who know the Old Tavan List Group, Namibia is our home. We're passionate about Namibia. We'll always invest into Namibia. And that was the focus. So protect what there is, and then there will be a future, but we must be there when it's over. So not giving up. That was important. And livelihoods is very important. We really had to make that decision, because if you will lose millions, you lose tens of millions, hundreds of millions. But putting people on the street, if you can avoid that, it empowers so many others, because there are so many dependents on every job opportunity. For us as a group, we have one of our targets for 2025 is to secure or create 10,000 jobs. And in 2019, we had a similar target. Now it's the next target. So that is very important to us. And obviously, when there's no revenue, it's very tough. There's zero. There's zero revenue. And then we had to sit, and then you must just make another plan. We just focus on other things. So what we did was really focus on the future, really focused on a time beyond Corona. We tried to prepare for that and not get stuck in the negativity and everything that is happening. Because if you open the newspaper, you open Facebook, you speak to people, the last 2 years was very negative. Everything was negative. But you have to stand above that and really inspire and create that positivity and give that hope that there will be a tomorrow. So that was our focus also for our employees, and trying to support also the industry players in that one just remains positive and believes in a better future, because it will always be there. If you believe in it. If you don't believe in it and we all get negative, we might as well give up. And that was our focus all the time, because at some stage Corona will have gone, and there will be a next crisis. But there will always be opportunities and a future beyond that. So that was for us quite important. I think the learnings then came, obviously, through Corona. All of a sudden, you notice, there's actually a lot of money I can save, or unnecessary spend that I have. So these little things that all of a sudden come out. We obviously, like I said, focus on people a lot. So the opportunities also came out in terms of how you can, develop and grow your people, and in terms of leadership, really, bringing everyone together and focus on that future and doing crazy things. When Erongo region was locked down, we once did a weekend where for the old age home that we gave away for free. And you can imagine what that did. You just thinking that you give a room away for free, but it was just a gesture, for the community, but it was so impactful. But before Corona, you would have never thought of these crazy things. So we did a lot of crazy things, and we learned a lot. And I think the last point was around opportunities. I think one of the big opportunities I see is that people now have a different perspective. We all, have family or grandparents, or fathers or great grandparents who were in one or other war, or who went through hardship. And maybe our generation, almost in the younger generation, has not had that. So it was always protected and the world goes on. And this was maybe our war, also for our staff, for everyone had to realize that, sure, we can go through, there's this challenge, this crisis we have to go through together. So it brought a very different perspective. And I think it creates a lot of loyalty. It creates a lot of hope, confidence in achieving anything. We have what we say at ONL also is that nothing is impossible. But if you think it's impossible, it will be impossible. I won't survive Corona. I won't have a job. My company will not survive. If you think that, it will happen. If you think I can achieve anything, that can also happen. So it was really about how do we change the thinking in our leadership, in our people, to focus on that. And I think this perspective has now come in terms of the person, the leadership. And then obviously business-wise, there are always opportunities. One must just see them. One must look out for them. Be aware of them. If you give up, then you will not see them. So there might be financial opportunities, but there will always be opportunities to think differently in how can we sell our products differently? How can we sell our market differently? How can we sell Namibia differently? And then when the whole country is in a crisis, one sees what does go wrong. And through that, also one sees other opportunities. And I think that is actually a much bigger topic, but all of a sudden we also look at the world in a different way. Mm-hmm. And maybe it has opened up a lot of eyes in business and in politics.
To us in the private sector, but watching from afar, it was so amazing to hear and read how you engage directly with government representatives to ease restrictions wherever possible. How did you go about it, and where did the initiative start?
Okay, yeah, we all know that, when the lockdown happened, that was at the end of March, and Namibia was basically locked down in April. We were all dumbstruck. Nobody actually had an idea as to what kind of future lay ahead of us. I was naive to think that it would be a couple of weeks. Ended up being a couple of months and multiple months. And, I never thought that we would actually survive 2 years. The fact that Hannah's just gone through another year of invoicing, and I could actually invoice 80% of our members who stuck it out. They didn't have an income for 2 years, but the type of resilience and the power of positivity that we had through all the negativities. Yes, some people, and it was strange and at first, we were locked down, and because we knew right from the beginning, Gijs and I were actually sitting on a tourism revival initiative committee and discussing issues of some kind of stimulus or some kind of support base from government. And very soon we all realized that as much as tourism was in the plans of the stimulus package, there was just no money to be had. We fought for our government to then at least allow us to do some kind of operation. So when Namibia sort of was closed in April and the whole world was closed, we actually managed to get our doors open again in May. So we started these domestic tourism campaigns. We invited Norbert said, did some crazy things, giving things away for free, going on to half price for some. Surely it came at a cost for many people. So I've heard over the last months that they said, Gita, what we did then was very good for our morale. It kept us sane. It's not been good for our bank accounts. And there are lots of issues still with banks. Banks have also become very hesitant in terms of tourism promotion because they saw how volatile this industry is. We've always been a volatile industry, but we are so impactful when it comes to quick turnarounds and quick job creation. And we've proven that again. Yesterday at our event, one of the smaller properties said, you know what, the lesson that we've learned, yes, it was hard, but it's our home. We have nothing else to do. The Development Bank of Namibia approached us at some point and said, where can we help? But what have you in tourism done to diversify your product? Many people have, yes, converted their hotels into quarantine stations or, prepared food for the old age homes or for the school hostels. So in terms of accommodation and catering, there was a minuscule possibility of diversification, but a lodge somewhere in the Kunene cannot diversify. So the banks quickly had to realize that, tourism was built for purpose. We built lodges in places where there's nothing else. So on the good side, tourism actually provides jobs in places and in areas where there's no other possibility. And that's the value of tourism, especially in a country like Namibia, where we say tourism should be there for all and should provide equal opportunity. So, you do need a cook and a chef and a manager in a hotel somewhere close to Opuo and Kunene, but you can also have the same kind of jobs here in Windhoek. So tourism is actually a nice equalizer. But we were hit hard. And what one of our property owners said, we realized one of our lessons that we learned in COVID is that we can do with much less. So currently we are sitting with half staff. We can come by with half staff. But fortunately, because we always remain positive throughout the negativity that we faced, and I have to admit that Namibia has not had it as bad as the rest of the world, because we managed somehow, I don't know whether it was resilience or just common sense that prevailed, we managed to sort of reopen in May already, when the whole world and especially Southern Africa, we had Zoom meetings. Like some people still like to engage in Zoom. I'm a people's person, so I'm really glad that we can hear people face to face. But in those Zoom meetings, many of the Southern African countries said, wow, Namibia, you're so lucky because you could open hotels in May of 2020. We got back to drinking the beers and the wines with our meals in June 2020. So we were able to kickstart tourism or start reviving it much, much earlier than the rest of the world. Yes, we had our ebbs and flows, and we had the comings and goings and the shutdowns and the lockdowns again, made us even more resilient, I think, because, we came back from every slap and said, jetzt erst recht, jetzt bauen wir uns wieder auf. Last year, December was really, it was cruel. That Omicron, I think, was a harder hit than 2020, because we really had started breathing again, and then came that knock, and it was so unnecessary, and the world proved actually that those decisions were unnecessary. But we've learned to make do with far less, and not only in terms of staff but also in terms of income. It has cost, so the rebuilding of tourism might just take another year or two to get back where we were in terms of the operational side and also the infrastructure side. But there's so much demand that I think that positivity that prevailed throughout. It said, Namibia, when are you going to open? And our slogan at the time was, Namibia is waiting for you. We were ready from the word go. We were open. We tried our best to even through the lockdown phases, then have those crazy ideas that Norbert referred to, have local specials and be a bit more innovative in the type of tourism that we could offer. Gijs has lots of stories to tell about the innovation that comes from desperation. And I think that kind of resilience, that die Trotzigkeit, die wir gezeigt haben, I think that's what now speaks for us, because we are ready actually to stand up and receive the world, and the world is coming back. Namibia is a very popular country. We see it from demands from operators. Our lodges seem to be pretty fully booked for the upcoming 3-4 months, our tourism high season. The world wants to come to a place like Namibia because we've got what it takes: wide open spaces, only few people, we've got the sunshine. So tourism after Corona is where Namibia stands very, very strong. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Gita. And it's good that it's Gijs's turn now, because I know that during the Corona time, your company was very... the average reader and listener in radio and television was very aware of what your company went through. And you were very open about this. You were also very open in criticizing government, for instance, and in showing how tough it was for you. But you also said you didn't want to retrench, and you wanted to, Corona was over and already you had new ideas. So that's what struck me as being so positive and so optimistic. But I'm sure you must have had it tough. You have a lot of employees, and you'll tell us just now about that and how you managed the crisis. Did you actually send them home from all your lodges? Did you continue housing them? Renovate? Did you begin to renovate the lodges, which I heard some lodges did? How did you actually spend the time, and how did you actually manage the crisis? And what are you doing now?
Yes, thank you. And I really identify with what Norbert said. When it happened at the time, and exactly the same, we had to lock down. We had to lock down, obviously in Windhoek and all over the country. But at every lodge, we kept what we called a care and maintenance team, to keep the gardens going and to, how it's so interesting how things break when they're not being used. It's way better to use things. And yes, I remember those first times, those beginning times so vividly, where the uncertainty and probably naivety, like Gita also, we thought, look, this would be done with weeks or a couple of months, and we had to go through a process, a bit of a mental or emotional process, where we kept on telling people, guys, we're going to get through this, and trying to inspire people. And at one point, I realized that I'm lying to the people and I'm lying to myself, because I don't know. And I remember that day where we sat around the table and we said, what can we control and what can't we control? Because we were spending all our mental energy on what we can't control. What is wrong with the world? Are they crazy? They're going to kill us here in Africa. And we stopped that. And we said, we cannot control that. So let's control the controllables. Let's control how we react to all of this. Let's control the message to our employees. Let's stop telling them that, stand strong and we'll get through this. I said to them, I don't know. I'm also worried. I also have a wife and children. And once we became, authentic in our vulnerability, almost, it's amazing how things turned. It became real, and we said we'll do whatever we can. Like Gita said, Gita and me and many others spent many hours, at various levels, from technical level to State House, to really bring this message across. So it was a fascinating. It's easy to sit here today and look back. I don't want it over, please. But it was an amazing process to go through, and also to see, just human reaction. And like I said, that really galvanized us. That authentic vulnerability galvanized us. And we also saw how people, the creativity of people, when someone is afraid, and I've learned from clever people that something in your brain happens when your flight or fright system is on. You cannot be creative. Forget about it. You can try whatever you want to do. You cannot be creative. You are in survival mode. That is why I'm always so afraid what we're doing in the corporate world, with compliance and things like that. We're switching off people's creativity and they're just complying. That's something that's very personal to us at Gondwana. We're very anti-corporate. And yet when people started feeling safe, then that creativity came out. And it was almost an explosion of creativity. At the lodges, obviously we didn't have money. We had this project which came from them, not from us in Windhoek, which they called Project Blinkvryf, because they said we have no money, but we have manpower. So we, our maintenance became Blinkvryf, we just washed and Blinkvryfed everything. Something like our courier department, who said, look, obviously, there's zero sales of couriers, so let's take that online. So we started the narrative in the online shop, and I remember I kind of felt guilty at the time, not a lot, but everyone who was involved with that project. So outside models, no one were paid a cent. Everyone were paid in rooms, or we had some, beers in stock. So we'll pay you with beer, or we went back to an economy of 10,000 years ago where everything was bartered. And yes, and that's also to your question. That's where we sit, and that's why I respect this forum. We realize the importance of having a voice, of having a point of view, and really airing that point of view. But again, not in a point of standing on the sidelines and shouting, but really engaging. The one thing that I really learned and respected during this process, again with Gita, is that we have so many willing and able people in our governments that really cares. I mean, we had meetings with government officials that went on to 9 o'clock on a Friday evening. Yet that narrative of, our government employees are lazy. Those people care. Yes, the system often sets them up for failure, because they cannot make a decision. Everything takes forever, and so we have many challenges there. But I felt there were a lot of goodwill on that front. And the last point from my side on that question is I completely agree with Norbert. The world has changed. I love Manny Goldbeck says it so beautifully. He says the tourist changed into a traveler. So and I'm generalizing now, but that's I'm flying to Namibia. I only have 8 days. I want to see everything in 8 days. That rush. Thank goodness we're seeing a bit less of that, and people who are coming for 6 weeks. They really want to immerse themselves into our country, both in terms of the landscapes, but also in terms of the cultures. The people are becoming sensitive in terms of, where does my money go? If I support you, who benefits from that? What is my impact on the environment? Those are fantastic positives for Namibia. And we've got a competitive advantage, globally speaking, in terms of the way that the world is changing, because I think a lot of that, and again, I'm using now a leaf from Kita's book, because she's always on about it. What the world wants is what Namibia has to offer.
Thank you, Gijs. You mentioned something that I watched from afar with amazement. That was the close cooperation between the tourism sector and government. And I know that there was a lot of initiative from your sides to actually make things happen, little changes that made a difference to Namibia. Where did exactly this initiative come from? Was it more from government side? Was it more from private sector side? How you mentioned that you said you feel there are people in government who care and who wanted to listen. We, as the forum, sent out a press thing recently where we said we actually felt that the Namibian government handled Corona quite well, with a very steady hand. And once every month we knew where things were going and how things were developing. We liked the way that they drove vaccination, for instance. We liked the scientific approach that government had all the time. They tried to close rumors down, so we did feel that government actually played a very positive role in that. But also when it came to reviving the tourism industry, we felt that government played a positive role. How did this start, this close cooperation between the private sector and government? Gijs, and then Gita, because I'm sure she was very involved. No, I know she was very involved.
She was our tip of the spear. I think it sounds terrible to say it, but I think the good thing is that government soon realized that, this country is going to die if we don't work together. The one thing that I found that worked very well, which unfortunately, again, in terms of the system, the government employees don't often see, is the human story, is the true impact on the ground. If you work for an institution like a government, and look, I'll get my salary every month, it kind of makes you blind sometimes. It's dangerous. We have to understand where that money comes from. It comes from taxpayers. So the real human story, when we kicked down those doors and we shared those stories, because it is always a multi-dimensional pot of influence I mean, also, foreign institutions, and I'm not criticizing them, but the World Health Organization, the CDC, they did tremendous work and advice in Namibia. Yet some of those people, they're not from Namibia. They don't know what a village up in Kolondo village, look like. They don't know what those people's realities are. They don't understand it when we say one Gondwana salary has an impact on 18 people. So to really bring those human stories home, and to do it with the personal liability of we. Like ONL, we haven't retrenched a single person, and that is the last step. We don't want to. So we come with something in the hand. We come with. It's not about us. Who wants to protect our our riches. It is. We come with with an authentic approach in terms of showing that we care for our fellow Namibians. And I must say that the goodwill has been tremendous on government level, at all levels.
Yeah, like I said, tourism is all about telling stories, and if maybe tourism is lucky in a way that we are so visible. So I still, in 2020, you drove through Korigas, and where you had these little makeshift souvenir stores all along the side as you sort of exit Korigas to the lodges, to be it Damaramopane or to Twyfelfontein Lodge. Those little makeshift stands were empty, and I actually took a picture where it says $20 for a photo, please stop by. And there was nobody. And at that time still, it was in June, July of 2020, it was dry, it was winter season, there was no single grass and there was no person in sight. Same as in Swakopmund, we have these very visible souvenir sellers at a very prominent place at the mall, and they were the desperation, the faces of those sellers, because they were still sitting there, but there was no tourist to walk by. And it was nice and very ensuring to see some of the Namibians ending up buying some of these baskets or those wooden statues or whatever else. So the desperation and the impact of tourism on the impact of COVID on tourism was so visible in everybody's eyes. I've got one little anecdote where I had to smile, where luckily, because we are all humans, including all our presidents and ministers, when we fought for the readmission of alcohol to the service in restaurants, it was at a battle. And I know that we try to impress upon them with facts and figures and commercial outlays, etc. And at the end of the day, when we won the war, because it was, like Norbert said, it was a 2-year war that we've gone through, and that's why we look the way that we do. One lady said, you know what made it? Ministers are people too, and they like their wining and dining too. So it was easy to convince them at the end of the day. So it's been a human to human battle. So sometimes we even forgotten, and I was reprimanded several times. I don't know whether you remember, reprimanded for not keeping to the protocol, because we were sitting with the high flyers at some point, and we really it was a sort of battle on equal grounds, because we were all affected equally. And that, I think, is what Gijs used the word galvanize it. We all became one big team fighting this thing, because we felt that the world shut us off. The borders were closed, and we were wanting to fight for the livelihoods of our people. So I think in that we all became, and that's, I think, one of the biggest profits or the biggest gifts that COVID could have given us. I think there's a lot more cooperation and more understanding within the community and the various sectors of the community than was before COVID. A very nice takeaway that we have from COVID as well, when our lodges were able to open to the domestic tourism market. And I know that there were a lot of critics, now all of a sudden we're good enough, and now you're ready to lower your prices. And I mean, that kind of argument I don't want to take here, because I also couldn't step into supermarkets and say, I want the butter at half price, but they expected that from tourism. So yes, but we've done that. And some of our operators of lodges said, you know what the value of that was? People in Namibia have now realized the beauty of their own country. They were able to look, because people at lodges took the Namibians around the campfire and explained the whole process. So a lodge is not only the bed and the curtain and the breakfast that you get served, but the stories behind the lodge. Why is a lodge situated at a certain place? What kind of benefits, like the 1 to 18 that Gijs was referring to? What is the setup that actually makes a lodge be a special lodge and a special place, and who all benefits. So the local community that feed into that lodge in terms of souvenirs or local procurement that is done at that site. So many Namibians actually got to know much more of the behind the scenes operations of tourism, have realized that tourism costs money, and learned to appreciate their own country. So we got many more fans for tourism in Namibia. And so that old concept that we talked about many years ago, we need to make ambassadors for ourselves. Word of mouth is the best marketing. So if more Namibians travel and know their country, they would want to sort of share their experiences with their friends. Instagram is full of beautiful Namibian ladies sort of posing in bathtubs in beautiful natural scenery now. They Instagram it to the world. So to the extent that some of the high flyers, the musicians and the VIPs of not only South Africa, but Nigeria and also Europe are now very keen to also, present themselves in that kind of scenery. So there were a lot of crazy ideas that now come to fruition. And I think the prominence and the visibility of Namibia is there. The sadness was visible because tourism is a very visible concept. So we loaded our Facebook pages and our social media with the beauty of Namibia, but sharing also the desperation because we had not deserts, but desert places in tourism. And that became starkly obvious to not only to us in tourism, and we felt it, but our government also realized that, the people on the streets, the poor, not only the beggars, but the people that were trying to make a living, the souvenir sellers, they looked with desperation to government to say, please reopen borders, get the tourists back. And I think that's what made us sort of be the spearheading, pushing force to get government to reopen and revive tourism. And our recovery doesn't look too bad at the moment.
The good thing is that we do have a government that is close to the population. It's different when you live in, let's say, Indonesia, where you have 120 million people. And yes, you do have associations, but the leaders of those associations are not known to government representatives. And here in Namibia, we know each other. That's really one of our good points. Norbert, do you feel that your company did something wrong during the Corona time? Are there things that you feel we are changing now? I once used one of your special offers to Mukuti Lodge, and I felt that your staff was extremely pleasant and helpful and friendly, even more so than previously. So I think everybody realized how important their job was and how important the role was that they were playing. But I also noticed that obviously the people who do the washing of your bedding or whatever, I'm pretty certain you outsource that. All these little companies that assist you in bringing tourism to the 100% level that we want to achieve. They obviously also suffered. Are there things that you think we should do differently now? Should we outsource more? Should we take more people into the businesses, offer more employment, or offer more outsourcing? But first, I would like to start with your special offers. Did they actually help you as a company, or were they just to fill the bids?
Special offers, yeah, that's a lot of arguments around that. We did special offers, and then you end up having people who steal the batteries out of the remote or steal the stecker, out of the wall. It causes more damage than good. So we are not in favor of that. It also diminishes your product. So it not destroys, but it puts your brand in a different place, and which I think it could be quite detrimental if you do that. And I think a lot of operators have learned that. Obviously, it's great to have specials and allow Namibians to travel and experience products they would maybe otherwise not have. And I think to get and his point was, we sold Namibia to Namibians, which was great. But there's a fine line there, because if you don't do it too much, then you do get the sort of client who then, diminishes your brand or destroys or costs you more money than. I mean, we have guys at Mukuti, guys who, can you move that braai in front of my room so I can have a braai, and then bring their own cool boxes, and then you still sit with the costs. And is that worth it, But I think we in the entire industry, we really appreciated the support we got from Namibians. A lot of the products were unaffordable to Namibians who were then affordable. And I think the support generally that the Namibian nation and Namibians in general have shown to hospitality and to tourism was great. So, but can you get, maybe it's not about the special, it's helping each other, and maybe there's a line about what do you buy, what loyalty do you buy or support do you buy, or what is there where we help each other? Like Gitta said, you don't go to your car dealer and say, I want 50% off now because of the recession. But tourism had to do that. So yeah, I think there was a lot of learnings about those specials. I think we've taken our own, and there's a line, so much, and you can't, not anymore. Yeah, so that was around the specials. Outsourcing, yeah, I'm not a big fan of outsourcing. I think, look, tourism is maybe the ultimate enabler. You impact so many people in the value chain. You can literally take people off the street or from school, and you can hire highly skilled people, and you can impact communities directly. And we are the biggest export product of Namibia. So you can add so much value. So I think it's everyone's own, whether you insource or outsource. I think the more important thing is whether you generate value in that value chain. It doesn't help you. We export our money, and the worst thing of outsourcing is buying stuff from outside and using it here, which you can produce here. And maybe that's, my old retailer in me speaking now. But even in your own company, I think outsourcing, yes, obviously it gives people an opportunity to create their own business and sustain themselves and be an SME. But there's also an opportunity for your own people to do that. I think it's everyone's own opinion, but the important thing is really that you generate value and that you create a sustainable value generation in that whole chain, so that people can grow themselves or their small business or their career or their own development within a company. So I don't, there's things you can outsource, which is maybe not your specialty, that you're not good at, that's not your core business. And there's things that you can do yourself and thereby also multi-skill your own staff. So I think it's everyone's own opinion. I'm not a big fan of outsourcing. No, I think one should rather do it yourself. Why should you pay someone to do what you can do yourself, type of thing?
I think Gijs is also not a fan of outsourcing, because otherwise they wouldn't have created Gondwana to go and now the new shuttle service. Why did you decide against, let's say, using SMEs for this and encourage small companies, small businesses that were brought up by previously disadvantaged persons, perhaps, for instance, in the shuttle service, but rather decide to do it yourself?
That's a good question, and I share Norbert's view. There's a fine line. So we do quite a bit of outsourcing of something that's not our core business. Something like the cleaning of the outside cleaning of the windows and actually the whole building, for instance, of the Delight. We only started now again with the same for the Grace. So small and medium enterprises, or a specific guy, Oshivambu owned from Swakopmund, that will go to the Grace and to do all those things. Those are not our core. Window cleaning, something like that. It's not our core. Both the car rental and the shuttle to us was very specific in terms of our brand. If we're going to do something under the Gondwana banner, it's got to be the Gondwana product. So, for instance, the car rental. You've all rented vehicles around the world. You go and you stand in a line with a small kiosk. You come in front and you say, please sign here, sign here, sign here, and sign here. And you sign your life away. You don't know. And then it's, you wanted GPS? No, that's extra. Oh, you wanted a steering wheel? Oh, that's also extra. So from day one, we said, no, we're going to do it different. And we really, and a lot of our plans, are still on hold. So we own quite a large chunk of land at the airport at Sungate. And the designs, everything is done. Where we really want to do a big hub with a lounge where you come in. There's a play area for the children. There are showers. Something that really welcomes you. Not a queue where you stand at a kiosk. And we only have one option, and that is the fully inclusive. I'm not talking about equipped or non-equipped. But there's nothing that you can take that you charge, but we charge you extra for, including the insurance. It is all included. So, and that was always important to us, the synergies in the value chain. People must understand that the car rental is great, and it's great for diversification, but we still make the bulk of our margin at the lodges. So it's just an attempt to bring people to our to our lodges. And the same with the shuttle service. We sat around the table, it's been coming for 12 months, where we said there's a massive storm coming. The worst that can happen is that we come through COVID. People want to visit Namibia, but they can't because they can't find a vehicle. I had a small operator in my office beginning of the year who said, a previously disadvantaged operator said, in the past, 90% of your work is to get the customer. Once you get the customer, you're almost 90% certain that you can service that customer. Now I've done everything. The tour is approved. They're willing to pay the deposit. I can't find a vehicle. They're going to lose that whole deal, all the work that they've done, because there's not a vehicle available. And then we said we need the shuttle, and that in itself is a long story. But then again, it's way more than transport. It's got to be the Gondwana hospitality. So, for instance, in every shuttle, there's a, for lack of a better description, there's a Wi-Fi system. It's offline. But you sit there for hours in the shuttle, and on your own tablet or cell phone, we give you all the content about Namibia, all the Gondwana stories, all the videos. So the shuttle itself for us is way more than just transport. It is part of the Gondwana hospitality, even though it doesn't, it includes the whole circuit. So anyone on that route can use the circuit. Any other lodges, for instance, the shuttle that goes from Windhoek to Sossusvlei, like you would know, our Namib Desert Lodge is actually 60 kilometers away from Sesrim. Yes, of course, we pass by there and we drop people there, drop people off and pick people up, but we actually go to Sesrim. So it's not a Gondwana shuttle, it's a Sossusvlei shuttle. So exactly like Norbert said, that to us is core. It is part of who we are, and we have to be in control. Every morning it's got to be like a Swiss watch. When you said you're going to leave at 7, you've got to leave at 7. We have our drivers. Also, we looked at outsourcing our drivers, and in the end we said no, it's too risky. Let's do it for ourselves. In terms of, for instance, a breathalyzer test. They have to take a breathalyzer test in the morning to make sure this guy is 100% sober, because it's our name and it's our risk.
So those are the new opportunities that we're speaking about. Gita was in a radio interview yesterday on Hit Radio, and she said we need more experts in tourism, and we have a Fachkräftemangel. There are too few really trained and specialized people in the tourism industry. And you mentioned earlier that we experienced a brain drain. We want our young people back. We want the expertise back. Do you happening, and do you see that happening? And also, in which areas do we specifically need those experts?
Like we say, Norbert mentioned it just now, tourism is an industry where you can actually absorb people from 10th grade. They don't even have to have the school leaving certificate to be able to enter into tourism. And that's been our challenge for the last couple of years, where we've seen the development of beautiful curricula from our universities here in Namibia, and we've got 3 of them already. They call it the Tourism and Hospitality Management degree courses. So those youngsters then would come and knock on the doors of a Strand Hotel or a Gondwana Lodge and say, I want to be your manager because I studied management, but they've never carried a plate or a cup. So for many, many years, even before COVID, we actually tried to speak to the training institution and the tertiary institutions in Namibia to say, where is your vocational training stream? We need people to be able to practically execute the theory that goes with some kind of skills development. It's been a battle. We've sat down with industry skills committees within the NTA, the Namibian Training Authority, for many, many years, and tried to also sort of influence the development of curriculum and the modules 1 to 3 and 4 and 5 and levels, I think up to 8 when you reach the university level. And still to this day, NTA had a workshop at the beginning of the year, and they said we should actually go to schools and we should go to parents' evenings and make parents understand that it is not the best deal always to send your child to varsity. We need workers, and tourism has been in a desperate need to get working hands in tourism that are willing. Han in 20, and I'm reminiscing about the past because I've been in this chair for so long. In 29, we launched the Tourism Awareness Initiative, for lack of a better word, where we took tourism to youngsters, grade 9, 10, before they do their last decision of subjects. And we took them to either hotel, we took them out to a lodge and make them go through the process of a day on a tourism establishment, be it at a hotel, be it, where they had to go through front office, they had to go to maintenance. When it was a lodge, into garden, and the kids ended up doing their own food. So it was usually spaghetti and salads that they then prepared for themselves and served. And I had the funniest comments, we didn't know what tourism was because it was never in our genes, but now we see tourism as everything. And yes, ma'am, I don't want to do the cooking and cleaning, but I want to do the marketing, so office jobs. And we said there are jobs in all kinds of spheres. You must just want to be in tourism. When you launched it then, it was at Tourism Expo in June of 2029. Minister Mbumba at the time, he sort of presented himself at the launch. And the message that he gave to the youngsters then was, to be able to work and to do valuable jobs for any kind of sphere, but especially in tourism, you don't need to have all the skills. You just need to have the right attitude. So that kind of concept, and we were grappling with how do you teach attitude in tourism? Same as with youngsters now going through the ropes of, middle management, upper management. University, we had a workshop on tangible and intangible heritage, because we always say that culture and cultural tourism is part of our genes. And we had the UNAM students there, and they actually asked, and we did the workshop together with the ministry. So how do we get involved in tourism? How can we get into the businesses? And coming back to Gijs's point about why do we outsource and not outsource? Sometimes the product that you want to put on the table, somehow you need to want to guarantee the quality thereof, but to produce quality takes money. And that's where sometimes people misunderstand the concept of tourism, because there's a lot of investment, and Norbert will be able to tell a story about Makuti and the investment that goes into maintaining and revamping and keeping abreast of the demands that we have from the international community. But when the youngsters then ask about how do they get involved in tourism, because they also want to drive in those fancy cars, and the then tourism director actually told them, you know what, if you want to go and be part of tourism, go back into the bush. And I will never forget the expression on that youngster's face. It was almost an insult to him. And he said, no, but tourism takes place in some of the most pristine areas, but remote areas. So the fancy trimmings and the highlights and the high-heeled shoes is maybe not what you will find in tourism, but tourism is so rewarding. And now, but one of the best quotes that we had at our AGM this year, 2 days ago, Rob Moffat said, all about positivity. We are currently positive about the uncertainty that we live in, because 2 years ago we were uncertain about the future. This year we are uncertain, but we're much more positive than we were last year. But he says, we've lost a lot of people that have now opted. And at the moment, you will see that all the lodges are actually shouting out for jobs in low management, middle management, and top management. And we always said, but where are these people? They've all ended up working for banks now, because customer care, what tourism does best is treat people. But you need that kind of service in all spheres of economic life. So we've lost them to the banks and the corporate world, like I said, and corporate and tourism not always go together. Rob Moffat had that beautiful saying. He says, in tourism, we don't pay with dollars, we pay with sunsets. But, the sunsets are so rewarding. That's why, Gijs started his introduction today to say, I'm passionate about what I do. And I think we share that sentiment. We are passionate, and we know Namibia can do what it takes. And we are very keen to see that brain drain that took place. Our kids that all have now found other greener pastures and another benefit of COVID, I've learned from many of our youngsters in overseas now that realized during COVID that it's much, much greener in the grey and the golden colors of Namibia, but it's much nicer in Namibia. The kind of freedom that we had despite the restrictions in COVID. So I think that already will lure our youngsters back to Namibia. And time for Africa is now. You have targets for 2025, getting 10,000 jobs on the line. I somehow see 2025 as being the time and the year for Africa. and we need those youngsters to come back. And I think all the companies currently are standing ready to be able to absorb those skills that we've lost and also build up from where we have. And we do have training institutions that are ready to do the vocational training that we do need. We just need to make it charming. And yes, fortunately, we've realized that sunsets are rewarding as well. You might not be able to pay your meal with it, but at least you can enjoy the scenery around it. But those are the kind of concepts that currently we are grappling with. It's easier said than done, but we need that kind of skills development. We need to make tourism grafts sexy for the industry and for the youngsters.
Gitta, you actually harp on something that the forum is also very involved with, and that we really actively want to get ourselves involved with, that is getting our youngsters back to Namibia. And now, obviously, with several crises in Europe and all over the world, I think our job is being made more easy than before. And we hear stories of young Namibians coming back. It's good to hear that opportunities are there in the tourism sector. I would like to touch on the MICE sector, which has been neglected, obviously, during Corona times, but everything has become so much more digital that I do suspect that there are opportunities for that sector as well. I suspect that Altava and List will have in their lodges, Midgard, Mokuti, Strand Hotel, actively embrace the MICE sector more, being digitally very well prepared. That is my one question. Is that really the case? And secondly, is there a growth strategy for that? And thirdly, do we have enough young people in Namibia to actually drive that with the digital knowledge that we have? Is there enough knowledge to actually have worldwide conferences on tourism topics or other topics within that MICE sector?
I think MICE is a massive opportunity for Namibia. There were massive events in the past and conferences in the past. Now we've got the Africa Youth Tourism Summit coming up in July, end of July, I think. And that's also, I think part of that strategy is also to put Namibia on the map for a MICE destination. We have infrastructure, but I think as ONL, we see the opportunity in MICE, definitely. But I think, does Namibia have the right and enough infrastructure to host massive events? I think that is sometimes, questionable, because it's difficult. We've been approached so many times to have massive events, but then there's either not enough beds or not enough concert halls, or at the coast especially, it's quite tight. So, but I do think.
Sorry, Norbert, I neglected to explain MICE. Perhaps you can quickly do that.
MICE is these little animals that run on the... Yes, a lot of those. So, no, it means meetings, incentives, conference, events. So it's incentive business, so big groups, conferences, big events, or meetings. It's a term for tourism, a specific market. So I think it's definitely a massive opportunity for Namibia, and Namibia should position itself for that market. It brings a lot of people in for that conference, but it's a massive advertising opportunity for the country. But I do believe infrastructure-wise, only Vintu can cater for it, and then it's always also it's not easy because everyone's all over the place. You can think of, Miss Universe pageant or, those kind of events. So we'll see now with the United Nations Africa Youth Tourism Summit, that is a great opportunity to showcase what Namibia can do. But if you want to really be in MICE, I think Soccermoon has all the facilities to do tourism activities, but then we can't do enough or that market. You can have a massive conference because there's just not enough beds or conference facilities, for example. So that's the one thing. So for us, absolutely, it's target market. We do have a lot of conference business. It's not our core market for ONL. I don't think there's many that maybe Safari Court would be for them a core market. But it's a great opportunity, especially also South Africans and African regional conferences.
And do we have that knowledge in Namibia to facilitate it?
Yeah, I don't think it's rocket science. Yes, I do believe we do, or we get it in quickly. I think it's not impossible. Because, like I said, we did host big events in the past. I think where it's lacking, it's not so much the skill, but it's more around the facilities and the infrastructure. Yeah.
Gita, you wanted to add something earlier, I saw.
Yeah, the MICE sector also includes the business tourism. And I think many of the destinations have realized that business tourists might not come back as fast as many of the corporate hotels would have liked to, because people have seen that, those Zoom meetings do actually make for more efficiency. It's far less costly and more efficient. People don't have to travel to Johannesburg for a 2-day meeting. They will just quickly meet on Zoom. So in terms of the business market, I think that will take more time to come back. But there again, Namibia actually has a very good positioning, because I believe one of the examples that I can cite quite quickly now is that Lufthansa, with all their traveling here and there, we were approached recently to say that they started their new processing sort of team building meetings in Frankfurt, but because they also do travel, some of the team members had traveled to the destinations that they were going to develop, and they shared their experiences. And they said, Kira, that post-session workshop that we started in Frankfurt, many of our team members want to come to Namibia now as well. So can we, on an incentive, come to Namibia and finish our business there? So Namibia is ideally situated to be an incentives market. Corporates that want to give a reward to their staff to say, listen here, on an incentive, because we've done so well, our profit margin is such, we'll take you on an incentive and do educational tours. Gijs said people don't only come here to eat and drink. They do come for the beer, I must admit, but they also come for the experience and the lessons and the exposure to our natural environment. And then Namibia is lucky too. We've got such a diverse platform of various attractions, from scenery to wildlife. Yes, we can't compete with the Serengetis of this world, but we've got the diversity. So the deserts, people are still in awe of our deserts and our skylines, and our cultural tourism is also picking up nicely. That's an element that we also want to focus on in terms of telling the story. We've got an amazing story to tell. And although and the forum will know much better than I do about the history and the not so nice history and stories that we need to tell, but we need to tell them. And I think in terms of tourism, tell the story as authentically as we can. So go and sit at the Altefeste with a beer and tell the sad stories of colonialism and, what was true and what was not true and where we want to go from here. We can incorporate all what we have in terms of revamping, reinvesting in what we have. The Duvisip Castle, that was also a discussion at our Tourism Trade Forum now, where, we can make use of what we have from the old reminiscent past and make work of it and actually make money of it for our future generations. And that's, I think, where we're lacking the kind of initiative or the willpower. And I think that kind of forum that we're sitting here now can help us in tourism to actually make use of the jewels that we have and exploit them and explore them for tourism purposes. So yes, definitely Namibia has what it takes, possibly not for the business market, but meetings, events. We had the Adventure Summit 10 years ago. Such kind of events that play on nature and cultural tourism. Definitely there's a huge market there. And we have the skills. We see our youngsters, they are very clever with IT. We see that on social media now as well. We do have the skills, definitely.
Next question from my is, when somebody wants to open a young startup company, doesn't have millions behind them, will have to go to the bank to get a loan. What niches are there currently that young people can move into, both in the conservancies, in the rural areas, previously disadvantaged, as well as here from Windhoek? What new niches are there that they can explore? Where did things get lost that we can build up on now, where youngsters can build up now and create new business, new opportunities? Gijs, I know the three of you are very well connected. You all, especially Norbert and Gijs, are from the bigger corporates, but you will hear stories of what is lacking, what can we do, where are there new niches, Gijs?
Absolutely, and I think the word is niche. I've had many of these conversations, where people say, "Excuse me, Gondwana, you're becoming so big, and you're going to dominate and things like that." And I always, and I'm very honest about this, and I say, if you're going to play in the commodity part of any industry, including tourism, then it's going to be difficult to compete with ONL or with Gondwana. Where last week I was in the desert and we received a bus of 38 German tourists. And my heart sank because we haven't seen that for a long time. So if that's going to be your target, the mainstream, the commodity, where it's mostly about price and availability, then it's going to be difficult. But there are so many niches in tourism, and in fact, I think the niches are becoming more. I think big companies like us will have to be awake regarding these things, because people want specialized. People want to stay more in the smaller places, the owner run. People want specialized tours. We had a conversation with a supplier yesterday who spoke about it's becoming so, everyone has a drone and a drone is so powerful, but it's becoming so difficult with the regulation and all those things. So they want to put together a tour for people to come with their drones. So it's specialized. Gondwana can never do that. We don't have those skills. We don't have that personal touch. So I think there's a huge opportunity for individuals, for entrepreneurs who are willing to specialize, to really add value, and that's also where the margins lie. The people who offer these specialized products, they can really afford to charge very, very high prices. In fact, like I said, for people like us, I think we're more in trouble because the consumer more and more wants that. I want to do my own thing. I want to, it's got to be specialized. It's got to speak to my needs. So I truly believe, but also we have to approach it right. I always say everyone has to deserve their dollar. For everyone, for SMEs, we need to give those people a hand up and not a hand out. It shouldn't be entitled. It shouldn't be, I'm small, so now you owe me something. It doesn't work like that. You have to add value. What is your skill that you bring? So the mentality of I really need to deserve and work for this, and that is important.
Yeah, very often it always looks as though money can only be made where money is being invested. And I think the last 2 years have shown us that those people with big investments had the largest liabilities to carry. I mean, I saw Gijs' face and Norbert's face and some of the other faces during the last 2 years, and it was a battle. We always said, some of those smaller guys always said, we are the first ones. Tour guides, for instance, cried out right from the start to say, my tour will stop now. I don't have any money now. I don't have any means of income. And I said, you can be lucky because at least you don't have the liabilities that companies like this were sitting with. In terms of the opportunities, I can just cite a sort of a feedback that we got given from American media that were here a couple of years ago to do sort of an incentive tour to Namibia. And yes, they park off with beautiful lodges and money needs to be invested so that Namibia has the infrastructure for tourism. But I've been told time and time again, first of all, that most of the tourists, even the Germans coming here, don't want to see my face. They want to see the real Namibian. And I really take offense with that because I am a real Namibian, but I do understand them. But he says, yes, we came from the lodge, but then we went into the village, and up there in Oshakati, they were able to go to a little Ovambo village and they were taken into the kraal. And he says, and the way, the Americans really know how to tell the story. He says, we sat with that lady and she was so humble, but so confident of herself, milling her little mahango pot there. And, I forgot to ask her name, but her name must have been Beauty and you could see this guy was so enthralled, so mesmerized by that experience. And that takes next to nothing in terms of investment to have a youngster from Ovambo land and I was asked whether I can say Ovambo land, and I can. We don't call it the 4O regions because Ovambo land has a story to tell exactly. But there are so many opportunities to take people that will have wanted to stay at places that have had a lot of investment needed to set them up. But they go into those little villages. All you need is your feet and your mouth. So language skills is very important, but just to be willing to take the people from an outside world into your little community and make them sit through a day and cook meals that don't cost an arm and a leg, so we don't need to import French champagne to be able to give that Namibian experience. I think many of those opportunities are lost because people always think that tourism is the commercial side that is reflected in the media and the papers. Advertising also costs money, so the forefront people like the Gondwanas and the ONLs are always seen to be the Namibian tourism world, but actually we need to thank them for setting up the infrastructure. But real tourism is outside in the regions, in the communities, and that's where the youth of today should pick up the chances that they have and really take tourism to the people, not only to the regions, but to the people, that people's engagement. And fortunately, we will be able to do that now more than ever. Those kind of small stories I as a Namibian need to be proud to be able to take him to my kraal to show them, listen here, we don't eat kiesbrei, we eat mahango pap. That kind of thing. And I think that's where the opportunities are. And that pays. I spoke to some of the lodge operators. They said, Gira, you won't believe the kind of tips that our youngsters get given. They earn sometimes more than we earn in the city in terms of tips, because the tourists are so enthralled by that personal engagement that our people give on lodges, those tour guides that we have. And those opportunities are not only on lodges, they are here in Windhoek. If we were to see tour guides taking people and showing them the way around Windhoek, to take them through the Tintenpalast or to Lovers Hill and the Zoo Garden or whatever else, our people just need to be proactive and confident to really tell the Namibian story, and the opportunities will basically beg for them.
Just to add on the opportunities and the skills, I firmly believe if you want to achieve something in life, you know, if you want to, you will. So if the passion is there, you can achieve anything. If the right attitude is there, we mentioned it before. So those opportunities are endless, I think, in tourism. So I just wanted to touch on that. So whether it's in the village or I'm going to start as a waiter and become a GM one day, the opportunities are absolutely there if you have the will and the attitude to do that, and the passion, obviously, for hospitality in our case. The other point on the skills, I think it's something, and even at the Han AGM 2 days ago, it's really a big need. It's almost a crisis. I mean, we do attract good talent, but it's not enough as ONL. But there were comments made that, I want to open a new lodge, but I don't have the people. I can't. And I think it's such a critical thing. We have our youth, and you mentioned it, that is immigrating or thinking the grass is greener on the other side. And I will use my manners now, but there's also a reason why it's greener on the other side. We must paint them the picture of what are the opportunities here, because they are here. And tourism is very volatile, sure, but there's so much opportunity in tourism that we maybe just need to show everyone. And I mentioned when I was in London in 2008, when I lived there, South Africa had this homecoming revolution because people were emigrating. And why don't we have something like that? Whether you start at the bottom or you are highly qualified, there's opportunities all over the place. So I think we need to get that message out more and tell our Namibian people who have left, and also even expats who want to come here, because we also need the skills that we might not even have as Namibia. Or actually, we know we don't have them. We need them. And I think that is a message that we should collectively really get out there. For tourism in our industry, it's a massive opportunity at the moment for anyone, but the country as a whole needs skills and needs to grow in that space.
And generally, Norbert, do we pay enough? Do we pay them well enough, especially those that have now become accustomed to high euro salaries?
I think it's relevant. I don't know what Gondwana pays, but I can speak for myself, I guess. I think it's relevant because the lifestyle is different also. The cost of living is very different. So it depends what you want in life. We also don't want people here who come here for the money. I think we want people here who are passionate about Namibia and who are passionate about what they do and live their life to the fullest. So we generally try and pay very competitive salaries, but in the interviews, we don't even go to that point because we want people who believe in what we believe in. And I think as a country, we need to attract people who love Namibia for what Namibia is, not because it's paying the most, and because those people will leave again for the next dollar. So I think, but I do think we at least in our industry or, with the hotel, we do pay competitively. There's other people who will, or not able to do that or who don't want to do that. And then, if you feed peanuts, you get monkeys type of thing. So it depends what you want, but it's your choice. I think as a market, definitely, I don't think we should be shy. But if you want world-class talent, then be fair and pay what it's worth, but don't attract people because of money. I think that should be, for us at least, it's very important. Yeah.
Gitta, what do your members say? What are their new plans? What are their hopes for these next couple of years? How are they going to build on what they had before and on the creativity and the new ideas that they got in the meantime? What's in for your members mostly in the next couple of years?
Like I said before, diversity or, diversifying from what they did is sometimes difficult when you are purpose-built. So, yes, they still believe in what they developed 10, 20 years ago to be the right thing. And fortunately, the demand that we've had, and ever since COVID hit and people were forced to sit behind computers and try and engage with the rest of the world, what Namibia offered then and what Namibia is able to offer now is exactly what the world needs out there. So I don't think we need our members to be looking at completely different options and modus operandi, because I'm pretty confident that the Namibian tourism product is purpose-built and it is desirable going ahead. Obviously, lessons learned are that we need to diversify in terms of the income spheres that we have. So, and I would really like to say that Namibia is not only developed or identified the domestic tourism market last year. I can show stats and figures from 2005 and 6, where Namibia already constituted between 16 and 20% of an annual tourism occupancy flow, because Namibians always travel. We go to Swakopmund during our festive season. And if I do stay in a hotel in Strandhotel, I become a tourist in my own country. So it's not a new thing. Obviously, the figures last year and the year before were different, and the equation between domestic and international market was different the last 2 years. It's now coming back to normality. But I think our members are pretty confident that and that what they have developed in terms of the product is exactly what the world needs. And we were shown that by the kind of engagements that some of our members went to have in the travel shows that were able to take part, and the Zoom connections that they've had. So the tourism product, I don't think is going to change much. There will be focus on authenticity, like I said. There will be focus on efficiency as well. So many of the trimmings that, the inconsiderate spendthrift activities might just be reconsidered. So we'll cut down to the niche to say, okay, what does it take to feed 10 people? Don't overexpose your buffets, for instance. Rather have the small. And I see the new concept is don't have a huge buffet. It's also got to do with social distancing and general hygiene. People now serve in beautiful little containers, and it makes for a different appeal, is much more cost effective, and it's a new look. So we have tweaked our project to meet the demands of the new normal in terms of hygiene and cost efficiency. But in terms of our product, I think the Namibian story needs to be told, and we've got reason to tell it now. And that's our infrastructure in terms of the environment, the wildlife, and its people.
One little feedback that I would like from you as well. I heard tour operator in Namibia who now lives in London and has come back recently that she feels prices have gone up, service has come down. Do you feel that that is true? There's relevance to that comment?
Unfortunately, in some cases, yes. It would seem as though der rastet rostet. Some of our modalities have somehow lost the momentum. So yes, it took some time to get our people back into the swing of things. And now all of a sudden that they are faced with a 50-60% occupancy, they don't know how to handle 2 or 3 guests at the same time. So I think we have learned, wir haben das Arbeiten verlernt. So I take cognizance of that. Prices is another contentious issue here in Namibia, because seeing that the inflation rate is going up, our fuel prices are going up, it won't be a surprise to see many of the accommodation trade having to go up with their rates next year, because it costs to put a tourism product on display. And we had some of our big hotel players, they actually did a benchmark study 3 years ago where we compared ourselves to South Africa. And even the normal rates and taxes, our electricity and water is 23% higher than in South Africa. Our Wi-Fi, our telecommunication costs are so much higher than Europe. So unfortunately, the pricing in Namibia is something that we need to really get our heads around because it costs to put a tourism product on the table. But I fully admit that we have to be, like the Germans always say, das Preis-Leistungs-Verhältnis muss stimmen. We need to give value for money. And I think that's the biggest challenge that our industry has, our sector, our accommodation sector has. Some people have done the some suck to say, if my neighbor charges $1,000 for my lodge, I'll do $999 and I'll lure the customers. And we have had it here in Namibia that people are willing to pay the price. We've got these people that are willing to pay the $12,000 a night prices if the service is right. So Namibia we are in a fortunate position that we are a niche market. We are an exclusive market. And I think that, to me, and I know some people feel offended when I say so, I think that's where our strength lies. So we do have the quality to attract the high spinners, but they then want the quality. And that's where we need to sort of sharpen our game. That's why we need the skills and we need the exposure from the international community and the skills attained there to be able to match the demand that we have here in Namibia. But yeah, we're working at it. And I take cognizance of the fact that some people have noted that our people have become a little bit complacent and lazy, but we're doing all we can to push them to really jack up their game again.
Do you find that your people have to get more steam into their work as well, Gijs? Did you need to have additional training after the crisis was over to get them back on their feet, pull up their socks? Is it true what Gita says, that people have become slightly lazy?
Yes. So again, something that we found very interesting is it was almost when the main part of the crisis were over, and things were starting to look up. At that point of time where we said this is what we were hoping for, as if people mentally kind of started falling apart. Why now? We couldn't figure it out. Why now? Why are you struggling now? Because things are looking up. And it's as if that tension that was held on for almost 2 years, and when it was let go, and it was a struggle. It was a real struggle. But once we got out of that, and especially with the occupancy, the best thing for human beings is to have a purpose. It's even pre-COVID. In the season, we are all so busy that we have no issues. And then in low season, we have all the issues in the world. People fighting and people because they have time to do that nonsense. So it really is. And something that Norbert said right at the beginning, which is, people have short memories. So we have a million reasons not to have everything in place. In terms because of COVID, but that's our problem. That's my problem. That's not the guest's problem. If I'm going to charge the guest a full price, they want a full product, finishing clear. So again, last week when I was in the desert, and then I see, our staff, some of the uniform are really old. We usually had a huge backup of just something simple like glasses. Now we have only 5 extra and things like that. That is my problem. That is not the guest problem. So if we're gonna fully charge our people, it goes back to what Gita said. It's value for money, and a huge part. We're in the service industry, and a huge part of value for money is that willing, able, friendly. Namibian smile, and I think we've always said that we don't have the most efficient service, as a nation, but I really do think we have an authentic and a friendly service to offer, and that should be the focus. So we're getting there, but we're not there yet. Yeah.
In Namibia, tourism usually relies on in-house training, and very often it's an amateur teaching another amateur what to do. So the mistakes that the first amateur made are then being carried on by the next amateur. Is there a niche for training that goes basically from lodge to lodge and offers in-house training, but on a higher level, more professional level, Gita? And would enough people actually make use of it?
We do have training facilities that were actually born from the need of having vocational training, because we know that, first of all, university training is not always what the industry needs. So in terms of the skills match, we said vocational training is what we wanted. Lodges do have a challenge where they say, but we cannot afford to send people to Windhoek to go on a 3-month training course. We need them to be on the lodge. But the logistics behind it is challenging. I do know that many moons ago, the HTC, which is the Hospitality Training Center, was started with that specific purpose to say, let's go from lodge to lodge and offer training. Then they became clever and they got money from the EU and they built a hotel school and got stuck in Windhoek. So there is still a huge demand for mobile training. And I know places like you've got your own academy, Volverdance has got a beautiful desert academy, Silver Spoon is established here in Windhoek, but they are willing and able, if logistics can be worked out for them, to get trainers on a very professional level to visit lodges. NWR had a beautiful system, which I think stalled a little bit due to COVID as well. But there's a huge need. And I think mobile training is most effective because if you get taught in the kitchen that you need to be able to work in later after the training, it's much more efficient than if you go to a kitchen somewhere at Hartleaves and then come back and, your kitchen equipment looks completely different. But the logistics are heavy and the pricing, people have shied away about the investment in terms of training. And that's one of the big critics that our lodges sometimes have. They spend millions in the design and the outlay, but they forget about their staff. So investing in staff is key, that we also need to sort of tick a box still.
I was told 2 minutes ago that I need to leave time for questions. And obviously, I would like to do that because I know we covered a lot of ground. We covered how you struggled through it, how you came through it, how well things are actually looking now, and how we're going to develop. The challenge that we still face, for instance, in terms of training or service or pricing or whatever, they're all surmountable, if you like. So very much I would like to hand my microphone to whoever has a question. It's most probably on opportunities and challenges. So Sven Erik Stender will get my microphone first. Can I still hand the microphone to you? And then you can hand it to whoever next raises his or her hand.
My question is first, I'm Sven Stender from Bush Telegraph, Namibia. I'm specialized on reporting about travel-related topics, and I'm also doing marketing for lodges. And I'm a one-man show. I was affected of this whole, I wouldn't say Corona crisis, I would say it was a crisis of mankind dealing with a natural catastrophe like Corona. And I think that governments failed worldwide. So it is more like a statement what I would give, and what I saw happening here in the industry, what was not touched. And I have the feeling that it was a little bit of sugarcoating. We don't want to dig into what was really happening on the ground, what was really affecting us. So you have to tell me, do I have 5 minutes of a statement, or should I just hand over the... I have 5 minutes, yeah. So I think someone said here it was like a war. And I also said I was so lucky that I was never experiencing a war. But it was not a war, actually. It was actually saying, governments, you can live and you have to just see where you make a new living, to tourism, but also to other sectors, as we know. And I'm not talking only about Namibia. I'm talking about Germany. It was a catastrophe, what happened there. They gave then sort of like lifelines to specific actors in the industry, in the tourism industry, the big players like TUI or Der Tour, and the one-man shows or the medium-sized companies, they were falling they were not helped really. A lot of these business died. So it was also of governments saying you can live and you can't. And if we are now looking back to Namibia, what we didn't touch was, it wasn't only sort of no support from governments in the beginning, lockdown. It was also sort of saying, well, we don't really care. We have to be honest about that. I will never forget this tourism revival initiative, just sort of towards September 2020, when government granted opening up or announced opening up tourism again, or the borders, allow flights to land in Windhoek again. but at the same time saying 14 days of quarantine. And then a journalist asked our president and said, do you really think that people will come? And he said, well, I wouldn't come. Well, if the people come, they come. If they don't, they don't. And that was really a hit into my face, really making it clear what we said, sort of like sugarcoating. They had that paycheck at the end of the month. They were not sitting in the same boat as us. There's one more that I want to touch. It's still in the 5 minutes, I hope. Yes, it was not only the lack of support from government. It was actually sort of, if you looked around, they said that you were not allowed to retrench. And yes, there are some companies who had the means. And you also said before when we spoke that you were lucky, actually, in a lucky position. But a lot of companies were not in the position to keep their staff. They had to cut costs. Otherwise, they wouldn't have survived at all, right from the start. What did government say? You may not retrench. I mean, that is not support. That is actually killing you. And then we focused on the local tourism. That was the only money was left, or the only market that we had. What that was left. NWR, state-owned company, offered super duper dumping rates, taking all these leftover customers for themselves, taking them away from the private sectors. And the irony of that was that these dumping rates were not covering the costs. They were subsidized by the very companies which were cut out of that whole business. Even the leftover crumbs they actually took for themselves. I just want to say it was not only a difficult situation for the whole sector. It was actually, and the government couldn't really help because they didn't have funds. I understand that. But this was really a very, very difficult situation. And I think that is more or less enough just to make really clear that these who survived, they really deserve respect. And to have still this optimism. I don't have that optimism so much in governments worldwide anymore, I must say. I'm also not too sure whether we are through the whole crisis already.
Thank you, Sven. Thank you for pointing the other direction as well. We don't always want to sugarcoat, but I think in the end, we did feel that the best things were done that could have been done, and companies were allowed to retrench later. There was a court order about that. Harald Schütt?
Yeah, thank you. I will only need 3 minutes, not even 5. I was impressed by what Norbert said, that if you believe in something, if you set your goal there, that will happen. And if you look somewhere else, that will happen. And I'm also, I understood from the presentation that Namibia is not only the country of open space, but also the country of unlimited opportunities. So I came here with the idea to find 10 or 12 tourism enterprises that want to go 100% renewable in terms of offering transport, accommodation, hot water, food, and everything else that belongs it 100% renewable, sustainable. Now, after this, and that's what while I was sitting there, my proposal would be, and I would like it to put it up as a question to the tourism sector as such. Why don't we go and make a 5-year plan to say tourism in Namibia, and I mean all tourism. Oh, sorry, I come to that in a second. What I forgot to say is, I also understand that tourism could would do well with a sponsor that would supply a substantial service without ever sending an invoice. And we have a sponsor about 9-10 hours a day is coming there and she cannot send it. She doesn't send an invoice. I definitely not. So why don't we market Namibia as the country where you can do tourism 100% sustainable? We can replace the diesel in the tanks with plant oil that we can produce ourselves. We can heat our water with solar water heaters. We can cook our food with solar cookers. We can heat our rooms and cool our rooms with solar energy. We can replace the diesel engines of the cars that go for game drives with electrical devices. I'm here, by the way, with an electrical vehicle. It is by far cheaper. We don't export the money. Every liter of diesel that is bought exports a big amount of Namibian dollars to somewhere else. So I would like to set up the question to the tourism sector and the challenge, if you so want. Try to think, why do we not market the entire Namibia as the country where you can do 100% sustainable, renewable tourism? Last sentence. I'm the country representative of something called PFAN, Private Finance Advisory Network, which finances projects which are close to the COP21 to COP27 process. I don't want to go into detail here, but I'm almost sure, I can't guarantee, but I'm of good hope that such forum would be able to provide the money for it, under condition that Namibia as a tourism sector, I mean, that would have to mean that we have to cooperate, come and say, all of us are going to be 100% sustainable and renewable. Money is there. The will needs.
I know, thank you, Harald. I know for a fact that Mukuti Lodge has a huge solar park that probably, supplies electricity for the whole of the Mukuti Lodge, doesn't it? And so if I can have your answer on that, and then also, Gijs, to what an extent you already follow that route?
It's such a big topic. There's so much to look at, whether recycling and reuse and energy generation. For us, all our properties except the Strand Hotel, so we all have solar plants everywhere, and we are not completely off-grid because it's, the batteries is also a portion of that which is maybe not as sustainable. But and then we do recycle all the water, we reuse all the water, we have water treatment plants all over the place. So for us, it's absolutely a big topic, and I think it should be more. For us, at least, we have very high ambitions on that in terms of how to be completely sustainable, and also to be it in the right way, make it in the right way, not to sacrifice one thing for another type of thing. But I like the idea of marketing Namibia in such a, because we are also a country that markets itself as untouched nature. And we are also we have a responsibility to protect that and not be seen that, everyone's driving around with big diesel cars or, destroying nature type of thing. So I think there's definitely an opportunity there. I don't think it'll be an issue to collaborate as an industry. I think it will be the benefit of everything. It can only win. How that will look like, I don't know, but I guess it's definitely an opportunity.
Also from our side, the same story, the holistic approach, but let's talk energy specific. We have vast solar plants at all of our lodges at Gondwana. We love the prospects from government to say that our national grid will be 100% sustainable within 10 years, and really hope that will be the case. The vehicles, absolutely. I think we are perfectly positioned as a country for e-vehicles. We've just introduced the first hybrids into car rental in Southern Africa. That Gondwana a few weeks ago. So absolutely, as long as we look at it holistic, let me tell you, one concern for us is these vast solar plant. What about the recycling of those? You know, in 20 years' time, we need to do something with that. We would actually prefer a 100% clean grid, you know, in terms of sustainability. But e-vehicles, absolutely, for a country, and I think, and nobody said it, I think we've done a lot already, especially in tourism. But if I also think there's an opportunity for us to be first globally, definitely in Africa.
Frank Steffen had a question, and Mr. Farts. Perhaps the camera won't catch you where you stand, Frank Steffen.
Yeah, my name is Frank Steffen, editor of the Allgemeine Zeitung, and obviously involved in the Tourismus Namibia magazine. Something that I picked up in the months leading up to this point now was there was a lot of talk, especially about from previously disadvantaged people, and Gita knows exactly what I'm aiming at. There seemed to be this continuous thing about the Germans grabbing tourism and holding on to it and being in charge of all the different associations, whether it's Han, whether it's TAN, whether it's whatever. And so obviously many of the arguments that were brought were, to my mind, unreasonable. But there surely is a sector out there that feels they're being left out. So what are we doing? And I think this relates to the forum especially as well. And this time I wouldn't want the answer from Gita because I know her answer already. But I would want to know, what is the tourism sector doing itself to make sure that people feel more inclusive in the country as a whole? In other words, what would ONL do? What does Gondwana do so as to support people like Gita, who suddenly stands being accused of not including everybody, but she already does her best. And I feel the tourism sector itself has a big responsibility to get these guys into the fold and make sure that TAN and Han and whoever are not accused of this sort of exclusivity.
I'll go first. I think there's a couple of things. Let me start with the consumer side. The one thing that we see at Gondwana, which we are super excited about, is with what Norbert said. You know, we only had the Namibian market to travel. We had the specials and all those things. The diversity that we see in our lodges from the Namibian public is tremendous. It is something that makes us super excited, and it's also a bit of a generational thing. For the young people, it's become cool. You know, it's Instagram. Everything is on Instagram. They want to go to the Desert Grace because it looks good on Instagram. They only want to travel in the Germany. I can tell you many stories about us upgrading people to a double cab and then they swearing at us because a double cab is ugly on Instagram. So that diversity of the young non-white Namibians really starting to travel in Namibia is something that's really heartwarming. It is some, and we also use those influences. It is very positive. On the ownership side, and I think it's always been a contentious issue. And let me just say it like I see it, and I'm not always diplomatic enough like Gita. But we must be careful between an age-old narrative and the facts. And I don't want to shy away from the facts, but I don't want to support narratives, because Manny Goldbeck, and I'm speaking, on Manny's hand now. Manny celebrated 30 years in tourism in Namibia about a month ago, and at our launch, Gondwana's launch of the shuttle service 2-3 weeks ago, Gita was there as well. Manny said he's never seen diversity like that. So I really believe we are moving in the right direction. But it is what is our approach going to be? Approach from a company like Gondwana is we put ourselves out there to say, if you are young Black entrepreneurs in tourism, come speak to us. We would love to give you a hand up, but we're not going to give you a handout. It's not charity. it is entrepreneurship. And that is super important. If we want these people to be successful, then we have to give them the hand up. We help them, but we don't give them things for free. And we have wonderful success cases in that, in terms of that youth travel, whose name I can never pronounce. So we have successes in that regard, that we really help people. And it's all about the niche. It's all about the attitude. It's all about that. Just to sidetrack a little bit, on our academy, we in the past looked at that because people think training is technical, and to some extent it is. But the Gondwana Academy is 20% technical skills. It's 80% attitude. It's 80% soft skills. And that's where the magic lies. So I think I can only speak on behalf of Gondwana here. We really try to be that hand up, to really help, to really support entrepreneurship, especially entrepreneurship in tourism, and especially previous disadvantaged entrepreneurship. But we must be careful of the narrative, because I think there's great progress that has been made.
Norbert, would you like to add to that before I hand the microphone to Mr. Farts?
Yeah. No, Gijs has said it beautifully. I think, actually, couldn't have said it better in my own words. I don't want to go into the associations thing, because we have freedom of association, and it's a membership thing, and we whether it's a Han or a Taza, they represent their members. And we believe at ONL, we need to create the environment for everyone where they can be the best version of themselves, and give everyone that opportunity to deliver and become what they want to be. And it's regardless of, any background or any privilege or anything. We need to create the society where everyone has that opportunity. And that's what we try to do within our company. So I think regardless of anything, we need to create an environment where people really have the opportunity to perform, the opportunity to live their best versions and deliver what they want to, and fulfill their dreams. It's part of our vision statement. So it's for me not, tourism, German or not, I don't see it that way at all. There's maybe associations that can be seen like that, that there's a German head, but does it matter? I don't see it matters, because there's a million other associations, and there's a million other opportunities out there. And if we want to grow Namibia, it must be everyone that's part of it, and we need to grow it together. But you need to have that equal opportunity, almost that environment where everyone can deliver. And I think it shouldn't be that what Gijs was referring to, the handout, the entitlement. Then we're not going anywhere. We need to grow the whole together, and then it's regardless of who comes from where. Yeah.
Thank you. Herr Farts, können Sie nach vorne kommen? Eigentlich nur, damit die Kamera Sie erwischen kann.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Andreas Farts, and my brother is still running the farm Düsternburg, which was the oldest lodge in Namibia. So I'm at my age probably one of the longest observers of tourism in Namibia. At the old days, tourism was, there are 5 people who come and they sit at your table in the morning, they sit at your table at lunch, they sit at your table in the evening, and they were the tourists of Namibia. That's how it started. But my question is, for our tourism to work well, we need these tourist spots at Tosha Pen, Sossusvlei, and so on. Those are the things that attract tourists to Namibia. As an observer, I hear, okay, another 100 million rand I invested in Tosha Pen and to upgrade everything. And then this lodge this place is upgraded, that place is upgraded. And 3 years later, one sees the same thing must be upgraded. When you see the figures, the government, these places all seem to make losses. And my question to you is, shouldn't we start an initiative to privatize all those government tourist spots in order to ensure that they are properly managed, well looked after, and very attractive to the tourists who come here? Because I again and again
here, when I visit our farm in Tüstenburg, with tourists who have been there, they say, Etoshapen, horrible. Now you can only stay at the lodge outside the Etoshapen, but on the Etoshapen, those lodges in those houses, they are in a poor condition and this, that, and the other. And that's why it always occurs to me over and over again, is there not an answer to get the government to privatize those spots in order to see that they are properly attractive and really furthering our tourist industry?
So the question is to Norbert Wurm. Would you like to take over Namutoni?
Benita, I just want to interfere here because I know that there are huge interest from all sides of private sector to actually take over the government sectors. This question, Mr. Farts, has been with us since 1990, I think. I don't know who of you know the very infamous Mr. Steinhausen. He actually made an offer to government then to take over the national parks. And Nico Bessinger at the time said national parks are a national asset. They will never be privatized. But we've come within times, and you would have seen that was it 12 or 15 years ago, the NWR started with these public-private partnerships, those deals that they did with private sector. The flagships such as the Etoshapen and Sossusvlei has still been a battle because they know that those are the money spinners. The good thing is that private sector then went on to build Makuti. I mean, Makuti's been one of the first lodges, but also on the western side, the western side of Etoshapen, we then had the beautiful Etosha Safari lodges. And private sector has given the NWR camps quite a bit of competition in the way that they sort of saw where travel was going to. You still have the people that say, I want to go into the park because I want to be there after sunset and before sunrise, because that's where the animals move to the waterholes at the Okakweos and the Matonis. But I do also know from the ministry side that they are concerned because the NWR is now state-owned and the ministry guards them. And there are concerns currently from the ministry itself as to the performance, the bailout that was given during COVID times. And I think that's something that Sven referred to as well in terms of the unfair competition that is rising. And I know that there are discussions in the way of looking at optimizing the infrastructure that we do have. So it's an ongoing debate, but you're right. Maybe one should push it more now, but I don't know whether you are willing to push.
It will always look like O&L want to take over Namutoni, won't it?
That's, I mean, we get approached by all sorts of proposals, Sven should be president and we should, take over government. But no, in a serious note, I think that question should be a question to government. I think, like Gitta said, there's been many proposals, and I think there would be a lot of willingness, in private sector generally. And there's a need for it because it's a national asset. But there we can say and we can talk as a private sector and speak, but there also needs to be that other side that listens. And I think maybe, things are changing, but it's really a question for government. They need to make that decision at some stage. But I think the willingness or the appetite will always be there because they are natural assets, obviously. National assets, sorry.
I don't see any more hands. So last words from you, Norbert. Where are we going? Are we on a good path?
Yes, definitely. I think the demand is there. Namibia is there to welcome the world. I think Gitta and Gijs said it so well, but it's really there's a bigger demand. That's why we need the skills. That's why we just need to get our tourism sector back on track. For us, we definitely see it that way. We have always looked to a world beyond Corona, and we are doing that now. And we will continue to be optimistic. As O&L, we will continue to invest in the country, and we will do so heavily to do the right thing and to help our nation grow. So from a tourism perspective, we are very optimistic, and we'll push it with everything that we have, bit by bit, sometimes bigger, sometimes smaller, but we are very optimistic, and we will pursue as much as we can. And I think it's something, tourism is so important for the greater good for Namibia. It's something that is a responsibility for everyone.
Gitta, I know that you're an optimistic person by design and by DNA. I know you see opportunities rather than challenges. And I know that you think we are on a good path. Can we grow on what we've done before Corona?
Well, definitely, Benita, when we went into COVID, I thought, are we going to survive 3 months? And 3 months became 13 months. And, when they talked about tourism revival and we will only see recovery by 2023, it was the first estimates. I said, cannot be. When we were in 2020, I was hoping for a revival at the end of 2020. We're now in the midst of 2022 and we are as positive as we all are. And I think we share that positivity because we see the potential. And I think of all the countries, fortunately, Namibia has a lot of challenges and there are many things that go wrong, and we've got poverty and we've got hunger at the moment, and it will get worse. But there are huge opportunities, and Mr. Schutt has alluded to one of the other kids on the block now that we are fighting for because, we wanted the Tauchai Park to be ours in tourism. There are huge opportunities, but I also see the synergies of making Namibia's potential work for us all. So definitely 2025 can't come soon enough.
It won't come if we don't work at it, right, Gijs?
Absolutely. So I think from our side, and first just to Mr. Farts, that conversation we must continue to have, and we must have it louder and louder and louder, because this is an industry that can change the destiny of this country. And unfortunately, and this is nothing personal, we know the people from the top to the bottom at NWR, those are good people. But again, they are being set up for failure. It doesn't work. It hasn't worked anywhere around the globe where governments has tried to do tourism. It hasn't worked. So I don't know why it's a sensitive or a political issue. It shouldn't be. Not only that frustration that it's hurting brand Namibia, it is withholding the untapped potential of tourism. A large part of Namibia's untapped potential is in our national parks, where we can do amazing tourism without destroying that which we have protected for hundreds of years, for thousands of years. So, but that on a side note, the future really, really looks bright. I can tell you as I sit here, and it's not a gut feeling. It's facts. It's numbers in our grid. It is deposits in our bank account. That bar any crisis, because we haven't banked it yet. It's just we're going into our high season now. But bar any crisis or any external factor again, that like Gondwana, we will probably make. It will be our second most profitable year in history. And what other industry can we talk about that can show that turnaround? Nobody said it. We are the biggest exporter in this country. We must really. I'm completely biased when I say this, but tourism must be top of mind when it comes to our national policies. So a lot of people say to me, "Oh, we see a lot of tourists out there. It must be going well." I said, "What you see today, in 6 weeks' time, it will be double that." So as Namibians, let's keep on smiling. Let's keep on welcoming those people, being friendly to them and being grateful, because I promise you that the future is bright.
And of course, our idea today was not only how can we kickstart Namibia's industries and the tourism industry and the economy, but also how can we create opportunities for investors, for startups, for young people who are in need of a job or a good position. And if we achieved a little of that today, I think we can do much more in future. Thank you very much, Norbert Wurm, CEO of O&L Leisure, Gitta Petzold, the CEO of the Hospitality Association, and Gijs Joubert, CEO of Gondwana Collection. I think we had a good discussion today, and there will be many more on similar topics. Thank you.